Well, hello and welcome. I'm Miss Heard with Miss Heard Song Lyrics Podcast. We're in season 5, episode 258. Wow. And it's our first ever Miss Heard Song Lyric with yes. The Miss Heard lyrics are Boner of a Lonely Heart. And the correct lyrics is Owner of a Lonely Heart. So we're talking about Owner of a Lonely Heart. And yes, it sounds like boner and I cannot unhear it. So there you go. All right. So it is a song by British progressive rock band, or I like to call prog rock, yes, and it's the first track and single from their 11th studio album called 90125 back in 1983, and was released all the way back on October 24th, 1983. That's many years ago. So who is Yes? Yes is what I had shared, an English progressive rock band, a prog rock band, formed in London back in 1968, so 56 years ago. It was formed by lead singer John Anderson, bassist Chris Squire, guitarist Peter Banks, keyboardist Tony Kaye, and drummer Bill Burford. That's a lot of names to remember. It has undergone numerous lineup changes throughout their history, during which 20 musicians have been full-time members. That is a lot of coming in and out. Since February 2023, the band has consisted of guitarist Steve Howe, keyboardist Jeff Downs, bassist Billy Sherwood, singer John Davidson, and drummer Jay Schellen. Yes has had explored several musical styles over the years and are most notably regarded as a prog rock pioneer. I would agree. They began performing original songs and rearranged covers of rock, pop, blues, and jazz songs as showcased on their self-titled debut album back in 1969 and its follow-up in 1970 called Time and a Word. They did a little change of direction later in 1970 that led to a series of successful prog rock albums with 4 consecutive U.S. platinum or multi-platinum sellers in the album called The Yes album in 1971. And then after that, also another 1971 album called Fragile. 1972's Close to the Edge, and the live album called Yes Songs in 1973. Further albums, Tales from Topographic, oh my God, that's the hardest one. Tales from Topographic Oceans, 1973. That's a mouthful. Relayers, 1974. Going for the One in 1977, and Tormato in 1978 were also commercially successful. Yes toured as a major rock act that earned the band a reputation for their elaborate stage sets, light displays, and album covers designed by Roger Dean. The success of Roundabout, the single from Fragile, cemented their popularity across the decade and beyond. And then it says here, John Anderson and Chris Squire remained with the group throughout the 1970s, with Peter Banks, Tony Kaye, and Bill Bruford all departing in the early 70s, so 70 to 1972, and being replaced by Steve Howe, Rick Wakeman, and Alan White, respectively. Then, in 1974, Wakeman left the group, but returned 2 years later with Patrick Moraz taking his place in the interim. And then after a final album, Drama and Tour in 1980, both of which saw Jeff Downs and Trevor Horn replaced Wakeman and Anderson, respectively, Yes disbanded in 1981. Whew. All right. And then in 1983, Squires and White reformed Yes, with Anderson and Kaye returning and guitarist Trevor Rabin joining in. Rabin's songwriting helped move the band toward a more pop-oriented song, the result of that 1983 album called 90125, their highest-selling album, which featured the song we're talking about today and actually hit U.S. #1 as Owner of a Lonely Heart. And then in follow-up in 1987, they had an album called Big Generator, also successful. Then in 1989, Anderson and former members Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe released the self-titled Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, Howe album, after which they and the other then-current Yes members, Squire, Kaye, White, and Rabin, unified in an 8-piece lineup of Yes for the 1991 Union album and its subsequent tour. Hey, you got to pay the bills, right? Then from 1994 to 2001, Yes regularly released studio albums with varied levels of success, and after a 4-year hiatus, they returned touring in 2008 and have continued to release new albums. Their latest, Mirror to Sky, was released in 2023, so just last year. Wow-wee. All right, so Yes are one of the most successful, influential, and longest-lasting prog rock bands, and have sold roughly 13.5 million RIAA certified albums in the U.S., as well as more than 30 million albums worldwide. And remember, this is the time, 70s, 80s, and 90s, where a lot of these albums had to be bought in person, not downloaded or what have you. In 1985, they won a Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance with Cinema and received 5 Grammy nominations between 1985 and 92. They were ranked number 94 on VH1's Greatest Artists of Hard Rock, and their discography spans about 23 studio albums. Like I said, the latest one, 23rd one in 2023, how ironic. And let's talk about, did they make it to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? It was a bumpy road, but they finally got there. They were eligible to be inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1994. So in August of 2013, the fan campaign Voices for Yes was launched to get the band inducted. The campaign actually was uniquely headed by 2 U.S. political operators, a John Brabender, a senior strategist for Republican Rick Santorum's 2012 U.S. presidential campaign, and Tad Devine, who worked on Democrat John Kerry's 2004 presidential campaign and Al Gore's 2000 campaign. How about that? 2 U.S. operators from different sides of the aisle, and Yes was the one that got them together, right? Also involved were former NBC President Steve Capus and former White House political director Sarah Taylor. So a lot of Yes fans. On October 16, 2013, Yes failed to be inducted. So with all that political power, not inducted. So in November 2013, Anderson expressed a wish to return to Yes in the future for a tour everybody dreams of, and cited Yes's nomination for inclusion of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a motive for a possible reunion. Well, he did that right. On April 7, 2017, Yes was finally inducted in the 2017 class Hall of Fame by Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson of Rush in a ceremony held in New York City. The musicians inducted were Anderson, Howe, Rabin, Squire, Wakeman, Kay, Bruford, and White, the same lineup featured on Union and its tour. Having failed to pass the nomination stage twice previously, the announcement of their forthcoming induction was made on December 20, 2016. In the ceremony, Anderson, Howe, Rabin, Wakeman, and White performed Roundabout with Lee on bass, followed by Owner of a Lonely Heart with Howe on bass. Bruford attended the ceremony but did not perform, while Kay did not attend. There's some squabbling there. And the big did you know, Dylan Howe, Steve's son, described how at the ceremony there were 2 groups, Yes and ARW. They were seated at adjacent tables but ignored each other. There you go. Back to the song. It was written primarily by guitarist and singer Trevor Rabin. Contributions were made to the final version by singer John Anderson, bassist Chris Squire, and producer Trevor Horn. Like I said, it was a commercial success in the United States, where I am in. Became their only #1 and Billboard Hot 100 and Hot Mainstream Rock Tracks chart in the U.S. And then in 1984, the song was ranked number 8 on the U.S. year-end chart. The single was reissued various times throughout the 1980s and 1990s with different remix versions and B-sides. And the background was the song originated in 1979 from South African musician, singer-songwriter, and producer Trevor Rabin while going to the toilet. He wrote, quote unquote, the whole thing from beginning to end. Rabin then put his ideas onto a tape, because that's how they did it back in the day, using his own home equipment, which included a 4-track tape machine. One of the recordings consisted of the main verse and chorus riff played on an acoustic guitar with some vocals. A developed version with drums, keyboards, and a complete set of lyrics were completed in 1980, so it took a bit. Both recordings were released on Rabin's demo compilation album called 90124 in 2003. For the full version, Rabin used the first and second tracks to record the instruments and vocals before mixing the song onto the third. He added, quote unquote, "You would be making decisions based on what was coming, and sometimes those decisions would be wrong, but you couldn't undo them. One of the things, a happy accident, was that all of the brass stabs and those weird things that happened on the record, they were just a product of what happened with the demo." And then, of course, Lightning in a Bottle hit. After relocating to LA in 1981, Rabin added the song to his collection of demos that he wished to develop for a 4th solo album. And among the record labels that Rabin pitched his work to was Arista Records, but he recalled owner Clive Davis rejected them on the basis of the song sounding, quote unquote, too strange and would not be a hit, and suggested that Rabin write stuff more like Foreigner and then come back. I never did. Isn't that funny? Because I mentioned Clive Davis back on season 5, episode 253, where I was talking about Break My Stride. And he also felt at that time Matthew Wilder's song wasn't a potential hit and ended his contract with him at Arista. So 2 ones that could have been big for Clive Davis and Arista Records. There you go. Another did you know is Rabin then landed a development deal with Geffen Records, who introduced Rabin to musicians with the intention of forming Asia, that band. But Rabin declined due to the lack of chemistry and his preference for making a solo album. So he would have been part of Asia, okay? Rabin's deal with Geffen ended in 1982, but an offer from A&R frontman Ron Fair of RCA Records was the first time Rabin's songs were recognized as potential hits. And here you go. Rabin said, Fair called Owner of a Lonely Heart a game changer and offered him an album deal on the strength of it. However, Rabin turned it down when he agreed to form a new band with bassist Chris Squire and drummer Alan White of the progressive rock band Yes, and make an album initially under the name Cinema for Atco Records. So much of the new material derived from Rabin's demos, including Hold On and Changes, and displayed a more pop-oriented approach than what Yes had been known for. The group worked with former Yes singer Trevor Horn as their producer, and the rest is history. Music video, have you seen it lately? It was actually uploaded 11 years ago, on December 24, 2013. It's at a whopping 52.6 million views. Again, that's 52.6 million views, and has a lot of black and white film noir with colored scenes spliced in. The song's music video was shown a lot on MTV, introducing the revamped Yes lineup and sound to a new generation of fans like me. I was in my teens, largely unfamiliar with the band's earlier prog rock style. The music video was directed by graphic designer Storm Thorgerson, who, at part of Hypnosis, had previously designed the covers for the band's album Going for the One and Tormato. Not Tomato, Tormato. Keyboardist Tony Kaye does not appear in the video, at the time of the video shoot. So Eddie Jobson was standing in as the band's keyboardist. Jobson can be seen briefly in a few quick shots in the beginning band scene and from behind during the rooftop scene, but he was not part of the video's animal transformation. Get that? See the video, in which each of the other four band members take part. The video was edited to remove as much of his appearance as possible. Ultimately, Kaye returned to the lineup, and Jobson never recorded any material with the band ever since. The video was filmed in London, with some scenes filmed on top of various buildings. Scenes of the band playing are also present. It features a high-concept storyline involving a man arrested by implied to be secret police and taken into interrogation. The protagonist of this man was played by actor Danny Webb, and he was plucked from the street and led steadily deeper into a building filled with other unfortunate victims. Ooh. During his ordeal, he experiences mental flashes of various animals, eventually arrives in a basement full of industrial machinery where he escapes after fighting an opponent. And then after climbing to freedom at the top of the tower, he is confronted by several men, played by the band, and eventually leaps off the building, transforming to a bird of prey. There's a transformation. The scene returns to him marching to work with thousands of others, revealing the scenes to be only in his imagination. Really? What? He turns around and heads back where he has been going. So that's the video, so check it out. 52.6 million. If you have any great suggestions like this misheard song lyric of Boner of a Lonely Heart, like I said, you can't unhear it, go ahead and send it to any of our sites like Instagram, Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, or just send us an email at misheard, that's MISSHEARD songs @gmail.com. Till then, keep singing the songs wrong. Bye.